Hey everybody, welcome back to the Prison Officer Podcast. My name is Michael Cantrell, and today I want to introduce you to ILEETA. If you haven't heard of it before, it's the International Law Enforcement and Trainers Association. I've been a member since 2015, but last year was the first year I got to go to the conference, and I was so excited, so hyped. Matter of fact, the hype's lasted me all year that I wanted to introduce everybody else to it. So if you haven't been there before, we've brought in Joe Willis, and he's the deputy executive director. Correct?
You're
Welcome to
correct.
the Prison Officer Podcast, Joe.
Michael, so glad to be here, man. I've been looking forward to this. I follow your podcast. I think it's an absolutely incredible service that you're offering, and it's a pleasure to meet your audience, and it was great meeting you in person for the first time last year.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I enjoyed meeting you. I have talked to you about this before, but I got to meet so many of my mentors last year. I came to the conference and all these law enforcement people that I've been reading articles about and that I've been read books, and they're there. They're in person, and you get to go sit in their class. And it was just, it was 10 times more than what I expected it would be. So tell me about how long ILEETA's been around, and tell me about, this conference and how long we've been doing it too.
Yes. ILEETA's been around since 2003. We're almost up to our 25th year. And the organization was started by Ed Nowicki when he realized that there was an absence of trainer development. So law enforcement training was happening. It's happened for generations, right? But when it comes right down to it, the instructor development, a lot of what was happening was just passed from one generation to the next, and the opportunity to build on instructors and how they were presenting, there wasn't a large emphasis on that. So
Right.
there were a series of other organizations and conferences that existed prior to ILEETA, and they all had great intentions, and there were a lot of great things happening there. But basically, as ILEETA came along, it became very specific about a couple of things. One was, if it's good for the members and we can afford to do it, that's what ILEETA is all about. And we want to make sure that members get as many benefits as they can, but overarching, that they develop and grow as instructors. And so that has been the legacy all along. It was passed from Ed Nowicki to Harvey Hedden. And don't get me lying about the year that happened.
Right.
In 2024, it was passed from Harvey Hedden. Harvey and Barb Hedden passed it over to Ray and Jen Merlin and myself and Jill Johannix to kind of take leadership at that point.
Excellent. And you're talking about it perfectly. The instructor development, and I've watched this in corrections, and that's part of the reason I wanted you to have come on here, and I wanted to introduce ILEETA, because in corrections so much, you go get a certification, and you're an instructor, and that's the last time anybody ever talks to you about it. And you may be a firearms or a defensive tactics instructor for 20 years and never get to go back and learn what's changed, what's new. And that's all ILEETA is about, isn't it? Keeping up on
100%.
yeah. How many people have come to ILEETA last year? Do you
So we were
remember?
just under 700 instructor attendees, but then you've got staff, you've got the expo vendors and that sort of thing. And so all in all, it's about 1,000-person foot traffic throughout the week that are at the conference. And so in terms of like massive law enforcement conferences, we're not there. We're not IECP and that sort of thing. But when you look at the folks who come to ILEETA, as you've already alluded to, Mike, it's the people who are truly dedicated to training. And a lot of these folks are the one-off sergeant overseeing training, or that person who has left the job on active service and they've moved on to the private sector to do firearms instruction or DT or legal or whatever, and they're looking for their tribe. It is 700 people like that, roughly. We're trying to hit 750 this year. It's about 700 people of that mindset. Lieutenant Q, drawing a blank on his name, out of Omaha, Nebraska, coined the phrase tribe of trainers for us. And that's
Right,
literally
right.
what ILEETA is. It is your tribe of trainers. It's people just like you. And so, yeah, roughly 700.
I felt that last year. I truly did. I mean, I was there for 5 days, I kept talking, you don't want to stop any conversation. I'd be sitting up there and we'd be having coffee in the morning and we're deep into stuff and I got to go to class and I just enjoyed, and then every night we'll talk about that some more, but there's stuff going on that people don't know about and they've got to know about because it's so exciting.
Well,
But
let's talk about the coffee and the that morning thing, right? So like
sure.
there's this buzz that happens starting at about 7 o'clock every morning. So the donuts come out, and yes, the stereotype of donuts at a cop conference, but we've got a great donut supplier right there in St. Louis who really does well with the donuts we get supplied, but we've got
There were
fruits and
apples
all that kind
too.
of stuff. But Badge Brew Coffee, say again.
There were apples too.
There were apples too. That's right, and plenty of apples. And the Badge Brew Coffee supplies the coffee for us. And so Mike and Brandy out of Illinois, great coffee product. And so as you rally around those coffee conversations, whether it is in the expo hall or down on the in any of the coffee break areas, there's that buzz that's happening where people are starting to connect, getting ready to go to class. And it's like you said, it's hard to break away, but those first of the morning conversations, and the Union Station has a great gym too, if you're looking for a good morning workout. And they've got, that morning piece, but then you go to the room where that first class is at 8 o'clock and it starts. It's like full on, get ready to go. You're going to learn all day.
Yeah. Tell
Yeah.
me more about Union Station because that's such a place to have this
Dude.
conference. It's so centrally located. The hotel's right there. Everything's there.
Yeah. So if you can imagine the heart of St. Louis, you've got the stadium and the arch, and like literally where the heartbeat of St. Louis is, that's where Union Station is. And it is one of the most historic areas in the city where literally it was the hub of America, right? The gateway to the West was literally this building. And so now what they've done is they've completely refurbished it over the last, well, since we've been there in 2017 when the aquarium wasn't there was no Ferris wheel, there were like 2 restaurants. At this point, it has become this massive hub of community and kind of rebuilding of a really great area, but in the hotel. So you've got this massive train shed area that they call the Midway, which is
Right.
where, people would come and get their tickets and all that kind of stuff. That's where the expo happens. Then on each end are great classrooms. So plenty of places to train and work, and yeah.
And I enjoyed having the access to the restaurants too, close. There's some inside Union Station, but I got with a couple of groups and we were just like, hey, come on, we're going to go grab a burger and a beer over here. And we'd sit there and talk for a couple of hours. And so that was nice too, having all
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
locally. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so like right across the street, an amazing Irish place, Maggie's. They, typical Irish pub type place. And it's, by the way, ILEETA conference is over St. Patrick's Day. So I would not go over there on Tuesday night. I'd come to our Tuesday night event, which I know you're going to ask me about in a minute. Then
Yes.
behind is like great, like restaurants, landries, all that kind of stuff. And then don't forget Sugar Fire Barbecue is right there.
Yep.
That
there.
may have been where you guys went,
That
but
was one of
there's,
them.
I mean, so many good restaurants. Yeah. If you're a foodie, yeah, it's the place to go.
So how many classes? One of the things I enjoyed was the fact that I got to just pick. I just went
Yeah.
here and there. And classes, I mean, when I've been to other conferences, sometimes you go to this class and it's one person standing up and yeah, they know what they're talking about. But I went to like use of force with Von Klein from Force Science. I mean, do you know what that would cost? I mean, I know what it costs.
I know what it costs. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But you walk in there, you take a class, you go next door. They got corrections classes, which we're bringing on. We'll talk more about. But there was use of force classes. There were PowerPoint classes. What's his name? Z.
Well, Instructor Z Zarzosa, Antonio Zarzosa, and
Yes.
Dan Frazier, 2 of the, I would say, law enforcement's best, the nation's best, the world's best when it comes to presentation skill and actual presentation development. 2 of the best. They present amazing classes.
Where else could you get that combination of classes, in a week? You just can't.
You can't. And so to answer your question, Mike, there's 138 is what it actually works out to as far as total classes this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes panels, that includes, the full spectrum of things. 450 plus hours of training available. So
Yeah.
here's what that actually works out to and why this is so important is you take a 2-hour block, 8 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Let's just pick that one. There's about 18 classes, somewhere between the minimum we have. There's 2 blocks that have only 5 classes by design so that people can go to the expo. But other than that, it's somewhere between 18 and 20 classes most of the week. There are a couple that dip down as low as like 14 or so. What ends up happening in that time is you take all of those people, divide that up, and some are out at the range, some are walking the expo. What ends up happening is you've got classrooms that have roughly anywhere from about 20 to 50 people in it. And once in a while, you go to kind of an obscure class where maybe there's less than 10. But that's perfectly fine because what ends up happening is the most authentic conversations and true instructor development. It's not one plenary speaker at the front of the room with hundreds of people in front of them and no time to engage. It's
Right.
authentic, real engagement.
I think another thing that people, or I didn't know, I think some other people don't know, it's not just classes like you would have at a normal conference or the ones I've been to before. There's certification classes. So you can go knock out some certification while you're there.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's a big
17.
plus. Got
We have
17 next year.
17 instructor level certifications. That is 3 from Axon, the Legacy, the 10, and the body worn camera. ASP has 2 certifications. Sabre has certifications. We're doing PIT this year, certification wise. So, I mean, so there's a lot of certifications, but for your audience specifically, when we're talking about facilities like that, there's so many less lethal certifications, available that, I mean, it's incredible.
Right, right. So I've spent all day going to classes. I've eaten the donuts. What are we going to do in the evenings?
Yeah. Valid question. So, let's just talk first about Monday night. And if you don't mind, I'll kind of, and I'd love for you to ask any questions and we'll kind of chat about what each of those nights are, because I'm kind of curious from your perspective about each of the nights as well.
Okay.
Monday night is Emerson Hour. Now, Emerson Hour is a tradition that started in 2013 by Brian Willis, no relation. And if so, he would have been my much smarter but slightly older brother. It begins with the simple question posed by Ralph Waldo Emerson: what's become clearer to you since we last met? 6 speakers are challenged with that question and given 9 minutes to answer it. Think of TED Talk meets speed dating. And so in those 9 minutes, speakers who are unknown to the audience, like the audience has no idea who to expect. The
Right.
other speakers don't even know who the other speakers are. Someone stands up, moves to the front of the room after Todd Fletcher, the master of ceremonies, introduces them. They come to the front of the room and from the heart give a very polished, very authentic answer to that question. Dude, I will tell you, I mean, everything from like the most sincere laughter to just straight up tear jerkers.
There were tears
These-
last year.
Yes. Yep. It is incredibly powerful. And Todd's an amazing master of ceremonies too. Like as the MC, that's the MC's job, is to pick those speakers, and he nails it, dude. Nails it.
Yeah. It truly did last year. It was moving. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be that moving. And, I thought it was going to be more of a TED Talk. But I think it's so much more. It's an emotional TED Talk. It's a real TED Talk is how I would describe it. So, yeah, that's a hell of a way to start the week.
Absolutely. It sets the tone. And then afterwards, we have a little bit of a hospitality night. Oh, by the way, sorry, Mr. Marotta. Warrior's Heart, which, by the way, coincidentally not intended, I'm using their coffee cup right now. Warrior's Heart sponsors that night, and they've just really elevated the level of it. Like, it's just such a professional event, and the way Todd MCs it and Warrior's Heart has put their heart and soul into it too. And so we do a little bit of a hospitality afterwards, and the buzz in that hospitality is people are literally just kind of sitting around in these small groups talking about what was happening, kind of prepping for the week. It's the ideal way to start off.
Yeah, yeah. It's like nothing I've been to a lot of conferences over the years. I've never seen anything like it anywhere. I don't know anybody else that does anything like that. So, yeah, You got to come, if nothing else, you got to come get there
Monday
for the
night.
Emerson Hour on Monday night. But
Get there
Tuesday
early,
night,
though. I will tell you this much. Get
yeah,
there early. I'm the deputy executive director, and I was sitting on a shelf on the left-hand side because I couldn't get in there fast enough to get a seat. I will tell you, there is, it is standing room only if you get there late, and it's worth it. Stand there for an hour because the conversation is amazing.
Tuesday night's probably my favorite besides the Emerson Hour. Tell us what
Yeah.
all's going to go on because it's busy.
Yeah. So, here's the thing. Tuesday night started a long time ago with Milo. And Milo is kind of a name brand. Like everybody knows them as the Milo range. They, the simulators, that kind of stuff. They wanted to do something to recognize and spend some time with ILEETA members. So they started this thing where they called it Whiskey Night, and they had tickets at their booth, and you would come by, you get a ticket and kind of go to whatever room they were hosting this in. And it was super cool. I remember going to it back in Chicago. It was a lot of fun. But what they did once they got to St. Louis back in, I think it was like 2018-ish, maybe 2019, they kind of raise it up a little bit. They said, we want to have food there. We want to kind of turn it into more of a larger social event. So we went from this thing that was maybe several dozen people in a room to a couple hundred. And it really escalated quickly. Well, then Command Presence comes along, John Bostain, Michael Warren, just a great group. In fact, I think you know these folks pretty well. They came along and said, what we want to do is add a cornhole night or a cornhole game to it. And so they have this cornhole tournament. And if you don't get there early to sign up, go to their booth and get signed up, you're not getting in as a team. Like it fills up fast. And so we've got cornhole going. We have the whiskey night that Milo's always done. And then last year we brought back the authors event, which actually kicks that off. So to go into this, you pass by these great authors, like, I don't know, Michael Cantrell might be one of them, pass by some authors and, kind of check that out, have conversations with them. And then down there is food, beverages, and cornhole. Does it get any better?
It didn't. I mean, it was just amazing. And I think everybody at ILEETA was there. They stopped by one of those three places.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, so here's the other thing. Like, this is one of the things I love about ILEETA. Like, this isn't just Joe is the, one of the guys who is, deputy director. It is the member in me that says, when we go to those events and you stand around a table and like you said, you meet your mentors and suddenly you'll look and you'll be like, wait, who just came over to this table and is enjoying this conversation with us? And there's professional conversation, but it's also this really cool opportunity to connect with people like you who share a lot of those same interests and meet up with friends that you haven't seen in a year. And so it's a really good social event. Like I would say one of the highest quality social events you can go to it anywhere.
I know it was a ton of fun and everybody came out of there smiling. It was a great time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Walk me through the Wednesday night.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, because it's not new. We've always had hospitality nights on Wednesday and Thursday. So that's not new. What is new is this. So we were at a conference back in, I don't know, May or something. We run into these guys in Hawaiian shirts and they got surfboards at their booth. And I was like, what do you guys sell? What is this? And so we start chatting with them. Silencers. So Silencer Shop is the, I would say, of fun people to be around and hang out with. They're at the top. They're too cool for me, honestly. Like they're just really, really cool guys. And so we're chatting with them and we're like, what could this look like? And they said, listen, we want to do something fun. And I said, well, we had this kind of ad hoc cigar night last year. And it was people showed up with their own little, humidors that they travel with or bags or whatever. And we just kind of sat around and had cigars during hospitality night. Then over on the Pegram room side of the Midway, they were still over there throwing bags as a kind of informal cornhole games and, kind of chatting and that sort of thing. And so, but they were separated. Well, this year, Jill Johannix, who's the director of business development, is working with the guys from Silencer Shop. And so what they did was they condensed everything. And so now what we have is almost, if you can imagine like a wine bar kind of experience, but kind of intimate space. We
Yep.
have that available now, and it goes out into the courtyard where we're going to do the cigar night. So very much a low key lounge type experience, lower volume, not the big impact and the loudness of the cornhole night, but more of a just come hang out and socialize. Kind of a
Right.
dip in the momentum, but at the same time, I think it's going to be even cooler. Not
Yeah.
even cooler than Tuesday night, but even cooler than it's been on Wednesday nights. Like I can't imagine anything
Yeah.
like it.
Well, you need to come down a little bit after Tuesday because they had rock and roll going on Tuesday night last year.
Yeah, yeah, they did.
So yeah, it'll be
And
nice
don't
to go out
forget,
there.
Tuesday night is St. Patrick's Day this year, so wear
Oh
green.
Lord,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess so.
Wear your green and come out. Just be ready to have fun. And the thing is, this is the other thing I like about ILEETA. Sure, there are those one or two people who maybe have a little bit more than they should, but for the most part, it is a very professional, responsible crowd who knows they've got to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, because you don't go to those classes unable to go to those classes.
Right.
You need to show up ready to learn and ready to be turned on. And it is just an entirely professional event.
I think the classes are so important to people. I absolutely agree with you that they're going to make sure that they're in good shape in the morning to go get what they came for. At least I know I think that way. So
Absolutely.
do
Yeah.
we have
And
anything
I'll tell you, I
Thursday?
mean, there's
Sorry.
no, I'm sorry to interrupt you. One of the pieces of advice that Brian Willis always gave was Tuesday or every night of the week. Sit down and just kind of jot down notes from the day. Spend a little bit of time in reflection before you go to bed. Great metacognitive space, kind of reflecting on the day, thinking about what you thought about, the conversations you had. Get that out, and then in the morning, jump back up and kind of start making notes for the day. And it basically switches your brain on, get ready to go and learn. And so the audience we have at ILEETA is very prepared for that.
Yeah. I like that. Wake up in the morning, read where you stopped. You're ready to jump right back into it. Yeah.
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 Kind of get your schedule down for the day, because again, it gets fast paced. Like we were talking about at the beginning, you go out there, you grab that coffee and get a little bit of the morning buzz thing happening, and then 8 o'clock you're in a classroom, and literally it is some of the most meaningful instructor development conversation you'll have all year.
Yeah.
And it's your tribe at the end of the day.
So while you're talking about scheduling, let's talk about the app.
Oh yeah, yeah. So the guidebook app is probably the most important thing you'll have in your hand all week, right? It's your schedule. It's the constant chat that's going back and forth. There's a photo sharing component to it, but starting, I wanted to get it out this week, and actually everybody, I'm gonna just go ahead and admit it, I'm the one that's holding it up. I haven't got the schedule in there yet, but all the vendor stuff is already set up in there. Jill got all that done. But it is the go-to source for that schedule. Thank you to Caden AI for sponsoring that. And it is, I can tell you, it's going to be absolutely amazing as far as how well it keeps people on track. It's great. I love that app.
That's exactly what it did last year. I'd be lost looking, and it's all right there in your phone. So
Well, literally the map, right? So I'm going to Mike Cantrell's class. I click on his name. Oh, there's his folder. There's that. There's the map to his classroom.
right.
And it's all right there.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the folders. I think do you see that in other places, or is that, I think that's kind of new. The fact that a lot of the instructors have pre-filled their folders with information for you before you ever walk in the door.
I love that. And that's something we started last year that I'm super happy about. That basically, so we're both teaching, and so what you have is the ability to go to your folder and drop whatever content you want to share with people. And maybe that's just a face sheet, here's my bio, that kind of stuff, but that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing legit like research. There's research papers that otherwise I would have to be, a member of a school to go get, right? Like there's that, there's, I went into the firearms instructor folder just a little while ago. Dude, dozens of things, like great drills, all kinds of PDFs you can get access to. And so all that's going to be available starting on the 23rd. It goes public to all members. Right now, it's just public to the instructors, but every attendee will have access to all those folders on the 23rd.
That's amazing. What a resource. What an absolute resource. You're going to
Absolutely.
take stuff with you, not just your own notes.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, can we talk about Thursday?
That's what I was
Thursday
going to
night?
ask. Is there something Thursday? Yep.
There sure is. And this one, shout out to everyone who is coming to the conference. We have the it's called Symbols of Service, and it's sponsored by Combative Firearms. And what Todd Fletcher wanted to do with that night was kind of turn it into one of those spaces where we could exchange stories, but also patches and coins. We wanted to do a really good patch and coin exchange. And so Thursday night is dedicated to that, but we're also doing trivia that night. So be prepared, bring your thinking cap, but also bring your patches and coins, because it's going to be an absolutely amazing event for that purpose.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that I knew attended, and they were excited, and they came back with stuff that they couldn't have got anyplace else, because you're talking to people from all over the country and swapping patches. It's not just your backyard.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yep,
That's pretty
absolutely.
cool.
It's pretty cool to have, a patch from another country or a coin from another country.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So one of the things that, last year we started talking about it a lot, and I know you guys have been thinking about it longer than that, but that's giving corrections that invite. This is, a lot of people have thought this is just for law enforcement, just for, on the street cops, but the instructor classes that are there are for anybody teaching law enforcement, corrections, even dispatchers, even, emergency response.
Yeah.
All,
And thank you for asking about that. And I actually, I kind of want to engage in the conversation with you. You and I had a brief conversation on our Learning Lab podcast the other day, but kind of in this space for this audience, the relevance of it. Here's the way that we look at it. So there are very few things that are instructor development related that don't cross from one side to the other. And even those that do, there's still contextual things we can pick up on, still some changing of ideas. And when you see a good instructor instructing, it's motivational. And so one of the things I really liked about it, and I got this from the class that you and Captain McRoberts and Gary York and some others,
Ron.
The conversation that was happening there was, I don't think I even knew. Like, I always kind of said it, like, it's all relevant, right? I mean, if I am with a small team of road police officers and I make entry into a bathroom, it is the same to take somebody down. It's a confined area, and the tactics are largely the same, right? And so you talk defensive tactics, you talk any of the interpersonal skills, any of the mental health stuff. It spans. And I've always been kind of frustrated with that's law enforcement only conference, but it's not. And then hearing you all talk about it, and I'd rather just kind of turn it back over to you and kind of answer some questions for you. The relevance became even more clear to me that it matters across full spectrum.
Yeah. Corrections isn't someplace that people often look, and I talked about this on a podcast not too long ago. Correctional officers are often very good decision makers, and that's because of the fact we get so much practice. You're making sometimes life-altering decisions multiple times a day, like a police officer, but that makes very good decision makers. But we don't take care of them the same way. We don't teach them about decision making. We teach them about use of force. In a riot situation, we teach them about riot control. But the big things we kind of miss, and I think law enforcement has been ahead of the curve for a long time when it comes to emotional intelligence, when it comes to the decision making and how to make a decision, and all that type of. And they're not soft skills; they're absolutely hard skills too.
Right.
But we need that. And this is one of those places where corrections can come. And if you don't want to go to that class, you don't have to go to that class. You can go to that class. You can go, and I've told you before, I was so lucky because I went outside of my profession and went to law enforcement class. I became a breaching instructor with cops. I went to leadership classes with cops because that's what was available to me at the time. But we've got specific corrections classes this year, and they're growing every year. And if you don't want that, step over, because you're absolutely right. Less lethal decision making, Force Science, their classes. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a cop or a correctional officer. That goes down the same lane. We're facing the same stuff when we're dealing with an inmate or a suspect. So it's so open, and I just want to see the instructors come and be part of ILEETA. I know that you guys have opened your arms and said, we want you here. We want you to be part of it. And that's part of the reason we're doing this, is because I'm going to put this out on my social media and just show everybody in corrections, hey, there's something there, because I didn't know that. I know there were a couple of, when I went back in 2010, a couple of conferences wouldn't let me go because I wasn't law enforcement. A couple of organizations wouldn't let me join because I wasn't law enforcement. Even though I was on a statewide SWAT team, I was, K-9, I'd done this stuff, I couldn't be part of their organization because it didn't say law enforcement. And
Yeah,
so we're past that now.
way
And,
past it.
and you
And
guys
you
have
look
your
at
arms open.
I'm sorry.
You guys have your arms open. You have you've embraced us, all of us, Gary and Robert McRoberts, and
Bob Duffy, I'll tell you,
yeah.
and we were kind of running down that list. So you take, even Ian Tyndall and the rest of the crew coming from Australia. That's corrections based stuff, and the across the world. There are great things happening in corrections, and you and I have had this conversation a couple of times in different ways. The When we look at the ability to read a room, the implicit use of emotional intelligence, there are few professionals who have the requirement to do it right, like correctional officers do, because unlike law enforcement that has a much broader population and the ability to interact with a different population throughout the day, and are armed all the time. That's not the same. And there's a lot of interpersonal skills, a lot of defensive tactics training that come with just natural training and experience of working in a facility that aren't necessarily the same emphasis when it comes to the other side of the profession. And I've always looked at this, and I think you agree, but you said something earlier that kind of caught my attention. Is it's one profession, just two sides of the same coin, right?
Yeah.
Like it is, at the end of the day, one set of job over here, one set of job over here, and it's the same group of people with the same heart to serve in the same way in very dangerous environments. And so, you got down in the DT room, Bob Duffy. You've got, the soft and not smart, not soft skills that you're teaching on emotional intelligence. You've got Gary York talking about escapes. You've got Ian Tyndall talking about a communication system. There's a lot of great stuff happening that corrections officers are teaching that I think the other side of the coin, the other side of the profession, should really be paying attention to.
We're all sheepdogs. Both sides we're sheepdogs.
True story.
So one more thing I want to say about, while we're talking about corrections, the thing I learned most about corrections, and I'd been in this 30 years when I started the podcast, there's been more than 160 countries tune into the Prisoner Officer podcast. ILEETA is an international law enforcement association, okay? So I'm inviting everybody out there. I have people listening from Thailand. 11% of my listeners are from Australia. Wherever you go in the world, there's somebody sitting in a broken chair watching an inmate in a cell. That's what I've discovered, right? So I just want to make sure everybody knows this is ILEETA. It's international. So all those countries, if you're listening, reach out, look this up. It's just amazing.
Yeah. And there's something for everyone. And it's interesting you said that, because we're talking, corrections, but even within corrections, there are, and you've actually kind of helped, shine a light on some of this for me through the work you're doing, is there's an incredible investigation component to corrections. There are special reactions teams on the side of that coin as well. And so while I kind of knew it, there's a lot of light that's being shined through these conversations that I don't know we would have had otherwise. And so as you look at whether or not it fits for investigations, yeah, there's some great investigation classes that happen every year at ILEETA. There are, if you are in a position, and kind of help me out here as far as firearms for guards. I know you've got towers. I know there are times where correctional officers will use and have positions requiring firearms.
Sure.
Do you mind explaining that to me?
No, most correctional officers are going to be qualified on at least a weapon. I would say most of them are qualified on shotgun, pistol, and rifle, especially if it's a prison. Now, maybe not the jails. They may just be qualifying on pistol or some maybe shotgun with that. But if you're working state or federal prison, you're qualifying on all three every year. A bunch of firearms instructors out there. A bunch of those firearms instructors are at FLETC. I mean, we actually have some of the top firearms instructors in the country that teach in the Bureau. So if you want to up your game, you want to talk to people like Todd Fletcher, who I've been watching on YouTube forever, this is the way to do it. You mentioned, and I never get his name right, Assad?
Mayub, yeah. Masad Ayub. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a member of
Unfortunately, I don't
ILEETA.
think he's going to be there this year, but there were times where, I mean, that was like, so cool to see him
But he's
for
a
the
member.
first time.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
So, yeah, absolutely. Less lethal, you mentioned that. That's huge.
We've got, I think,
some of those
three
companies
less lethal courses outside, like firearms type. You got the less lethal for patrol. There's another munitions course. Then we've got three different chemical irritant courses. Use of force instructor by Defense Technology. So, I mean, there's a lot of that option.
I'll tell you what I'm waiting for, too. You mentioned Milo. I talked to Milo earlier this year about corrections-specific scenarios. And so I'm waiting to see those come out. I'm excited about that. And, we'll be able to step up there with a 40 or step up there with a pepper ball and actually go through those scenarios. So that will be amazing for corrections.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, but that's the other thing. At ILEETA, so you will have those opportunities to engage with industry. And this is what we tell our vendors. If somewhere out there a vendor is listening to this, don't show up to the expo expecting to just kind of sit in the booth and people walk by and grab some, lollipop off your table. That's not what's going to happen at ILEETA. You're going to get trainers who know a lot about this industry and a lot about this space. And it's going to be Mike Cantrell stopping by a virtual reality booth and talking about the hard details of how come you don't have corrections in your stuff yet, and where's the less lethal options that I have available to me. Can I fire a 40 millimeter? Do you have 68 caliber? Where are we at on these things? And ask the hard questions. So just be ready for that.
Yeah. I was impressed last year. One of the booths that got me, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name, but they had virtual reality and they had these pistols that you engaged. And I was like, oh, that looks like, a toy. And Miles Cook's the one that said, it's not a toy. And I walked over there and this thing weighs like a pistol. You drop a magazine, you do this and it drops the magazine. And it
Ace
was
Virtual,
amazing.
I think, is probably who.
Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing. I had never touched anything like that before. And
so cool. Yeah. And I mean, and actually, this is one of the things I was going to challenge you with. Get involved in the conversation this year as we talk about the synthetic training environment. There will be a much larger conversation about what that is and what it's becoming. And there's a panel every day talking about something, that's largely applicable. And on Monday is the Future of Training panel. It's headed up by Jennifer Hall. She's she's a sergeant out of Louisville and is just a phenomenal researcher. She's got her PhD, but she's a great cop, and that's her background there too, right? So she's the right person to lead this. But on the panel, off the top of my head, you've got Paul Taylor, self, Justin Witt, and Lon Bartel. And so in that group, we're talking about what the future of training looks like. And as we kind of lean towards you've got the synthetic training environment, but you also have an analogy I've been using lately is where real meets synthetic meets real again. And that's where this training happens, and you've got to be able to transfer it. And there's so much to be discussed there. So I'm asking you, Mike, get involved in that conversation with us this year from the corrections perspective.
I'd love to. I was just on a morning show with a couple of guys out of Canada, Keith and John, and they were talking about molt. Have you seen this? And you type in I want to move through this virtual area. It's like a video game as a big pink rabbit. And so you can do whatever inside there. You're inside a world, everybody and it's bigger than a video game, and it's more detailed. And my brain was going, I could put them in a prison. I could walk officers through a prison. That would just, be so amazing that there's no other way to do that. Connex boxes doesn't do that. Cardboard walls doesn't do that. But I think that's where we're headed with some of that stuff, and I'm excited for it.
Have you ever done one of those, like either the roller coaster or walking on a tightrope wearing a virtual headset?
I have not.
So our brains don't recognize threat differently in a virtual environment than they do in the real world. And so as you are walking on a tightrope, and especially if wind's blowing and the sound is appropriate, it literally feels as though, to your unconscious mind, the limbic system of our brain, that we are in this space, and it's a way of getting after some stress inoculation, right? But also, as you just said, kind of creating that realistic scenario. A few years ago, I went to Axon's conference, and there was a demo of a VR capability, and this was before law enforcement had really started to invest in it. It was more, in other spaces. They took us through a scenario as social workers going to a home to remove a child. And it was law enforcement context to a certain extent, but it was definitely more social worker oriented. And in that moment, like you're able to look around and see 360 degrees. The wind is blowing, and there's clothes on a clothesline, and you're walking up to a trailer, and there's a child there who looks lifelike, is real, and that's the kid that's there, and the mom and dad are there. And this was, I don't even know how many years ago, but it was incredibly realistic.
Wow.
We're there, man. That's where training's happening.
Yeah. My wife is, and this is just kind of on that. She was an elementary school teacher, went to school for it. And I guess babies, they would put them off over like a picture of a canyon. Little babies, you don't learn that until you're like a couple of years old or 18 months old, whatever it is. They'll just walk out there. And then as you get older, you learn that there's a reason to have fear. And so visual will do that. That's what I thought of when you were talking about that.
Even when you know it's not real, it's still real to that unconscious part of your mind.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Did I miss anything? What else we got going at ILEETA?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head across the board, everything we've got going on. I mean, we've spent a great 40 plus minutes together kind of having this conversation. So I think you hit everything. Only there's so much more, right? Like I know you and I could literally sit here and talk about like all the greatness and all these great classes. What I really wanted to, for the community corrections, probation, parole, it was so awesome meeting. I'm guessing you probably got a little bit of that audience as well.
Ron Scheit is he's a probation and parole officer, great guy, great trainer. I'd heard of him before I came to ILEETA.
Yeah. Yep. And he's on our advisory board and is just a phenomenal trainer, but he's also one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, right? Like I just love talking to him. But I did not realize, once again, like the connection we have until, sitting down talking to him, how closely related a lot of these things are. And there's, for your community corrections, probation, parole, there is a tremendous amount of crossover as well. And so we had last year, we had a couple of different instructors from that community come, hoping to get some back for 27. But in the meantime, in fact, actually, if you are an instructor, do you mind if I plug that real quick?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, if you are an instructor and you want to kind of step out onto the world stage and have this conversation, join Mike and some of the others that are pushing the boundaries of where these two lines meet on that same side of the different sides of the coin. Put your proposal in and follow us on ILEETA.org. And I'm sure, Mike, you've mentioned ILEETA on your podcast many times. When the proposal window opens on June 1st. I may bug you to kind of drop the mention to everybody to say,
Absolutely.
hey, we're seeking proposals and we want to see you there, because there's a conversation to be had and we want all aspects to be part of it. I've shown a little bit of my ignorance today, but I genuinely appreciate what Gary and Mike and Captain Mac and Ron and all of these others have done to help educate me over the years. There's an entire profession that needs all aspects of this conversation, and we'd love for you to be a part of it.
Yeah. Probation and parole, even an old dog like me can learn something, because last year I had somebody tell me, and it makes perfect sense. Probation and parole is routinely put into situations and places that law enforcement trains a lot for. And probation and parole doesn't get that same level of training, but they're dealing with people who are in or out of jail, corrections, whatever. They're dealing with emotional situations. They're dealing with domestic stuff all the time. But they don't get that same level of training that sometimes law enforcement gets to go deal with at the same places. So this is a great place to come and get your feet into those areas, get your butt into those seats in those classes that will help you with that. And
the arms are open, like you said. You know, we not only welcome, but we want the connection. We want this engagement. We want the interaction, and we want to learn from each other and share when appropriate. So yeah, the more the merrier, and everyone is welcome.
As John Bostaine teaches me, iron sharpens iron. So we can absolutely sharpen each other.
As one man, absolutely sharpens another. Yeah.
So if you're listening to this, please go to ILEETA.org. Go check it out. Take a look at the conference. If not, I started off looking at the journal too. We didn't even talk about the journal. Yeah. Every quarter, great articles from those same people who are going to be doing instructing. So check out that. Check out the journal. Check out the membership, of course, and you get access to all that stuff. Any final words, Joe?
No, Mike, I think you hit the nail on the head. Thank you so much for just letting me be here and kind of talk about this organization that, you know, we both love very much, and share the ILEETA story as much as we could in this time. But there's so much more to it, and so you'll have to join us in St. Louis to get that.
Yeah. I know you've been busting your butt. Thank you for everything you do. Because I've been watching, I watch you work and work and work, make sure all this goes perfectly, and it does. And so thank you for everything you and Ray and everybody does to make this a great resource for all the rest of us. Yeah.
And from my perspective, do you mind if I pass that on to the volunteers and Jen and Jill and the conference staff? And I mean, we would be absolutely lost without the support of everyone else. So I will take your compliment and with gracious acceptance, but I'm going to pass it on to everyone else.
Perfect. Have a great day, Joe.
You too.
The fundamental philosophies and principles of the organization have stayed consistent since the start. It's about the membership. It's about us facilitating training that's going to raise the bar for the profession as a whole, facilitate that learning and that growth for people in the profession that are interested in what can we do to do a better job to prepare our people for the complexities and the challenges of the profession that they're in. We're an association that's committed to trainers and to training that also happens to run a world-class conference.
We have an entirely packed schedule over the course of a week. Every night at ILEETA is designed to get trainers to connect to each other and to the industries that support training and law enforcement.
And the environment here, and Ed was very intentional about creating this culture where it's a culture of peers. It should be on your bucket list of things to come. Once you've been here once, then you'll understand what all the buzz is about.
ILEETA is more than a conference.
It's not just sharing of academic theories, it's practical application for that research and that information. It's important to have a connection with like-minded people who are going through the same struggles, have been through the same struggles, knowing that you're not alone and that you have people that you can reach out to is something that a lot of trainers need.
This conference will always be the cornerstone. This conference will always be the pilgrimage that trainers take every year to find one another.
So just that connection is a critical component and an important piece of being part of this community of trainers, which is what it is.